In the
We've
world of
got movement
military
on the east
service,
flank.
respect isn't always
Acknowledged.
given where
Secure
it's
the
due.
perimeter.
Sometimes, the most powerful people walk among us in the simplest uniforms, their true authority hidden behind humble appearances. What happens when prejudice meets reality? When assumptions crash against truth? This is the story of Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez, a decorated officer whose journey from fresh recruit to commanding authority was marked by one unforgettable encounter that would change everything. It's a tale of courage, determination, and the moment when one young corporal learned that appearances can be dangerously deceiving. In a world where rank means everything, sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected sources. This is her story. Sarah Martinez had always dreamed of serving her country. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she watched her grandfather polish his old Army medals every Sunday morning, telling stories of honor, duty, and brotherhood that filled her young heart with purpose. At 18, fresh out of high school, she walked into the recruitment office with determination burning in her dark eyes and signed her name on the dotted line that would change her life forever. Basic training at Fort Benning was everything she expected and nothing she was prepared for. The Georgia heat beat down mercilessly as drill sergeants screamed orders that seemed designed to break both body and spirit. Sarah found herself among 40 other recruits, mostly young men who towered over her 5'4" frame. From day one, she knew she had to prove herself twice as hard as anyone else. The physical challenges were brutal. 5 a.m. wake-up calls led to grueling runs through obstacle courses that left muscles screaming and lungs burning. Sarah's compact frame worked to her advantage in some areas. She could navigate tight spaces and move with surprising speed, but the heavy equipment and long marches tested her limits daily. While some of her fellow recruits complained or looked for shortcuts, Sarah pushed through with quiet determination. Her drill sergeant, Master Sergeant Thompson, was a 20-year veteran who had seen every type of recruit imaginable. He noticed Sarah immediately, not because she was one of the few women in the group, but because of her unwavering focus. While others joked around during brief rest periods, she studied field manuals. When others struggled with weapon maintenance, she stayed up late perfecting her technique by flashlight. The first real test came during week 3 of training. The recruits were tasked with a night navigation exercise through dense woodland. Using only a compass and map, they had to reach 3 checkpoints and return to base camp before dawn. Many of the recruits had never used a compass before, and the darkness made everything more challenging. Sarah had spent hours studying topographical maps and practicing with her compass until reading it became second nature. As her team struggled in the darkness, she quietly took the lead. Her teammates, initially skeptical of following a woman half their size, soon realized she knew exactly where she was going. She guided them through ravines and over hills, always checking their position and adjusting their route. When they reached the first checkpoint ahead of schedule, her teammate Marcus, a big guy from Alabama who had initially made jokes about women in combat, looked at her with new respect. "How did you learn to read terrain like that?" he asked, genuinely curious. Sarah smiled in the darkness. "My grandfather taught me to hunt when I was 12. He said if you couldn't find your way home, you didn't deserve to be in the woods." It was a simple answer, but it revealed the foundation of skills that would serve her throughout her military career. The navigation exercise became a turning point. Word spread among the other recruits about Sarah's performance, and slowly, the whispers and doubts began to fade. She wasn't trying to prove she was better than anyone else. She was simply demonstrating that she belonged there as much as any of them. Master Sergeant Thompson began to take special notice of Sarah's progress. During weapons training, she consistently scored in the top 5%. Her shooting stance was textbook perfect, and she had an uncanny ability to remain calm under pressure. When other recruits panicked during simulated combat scenarios, Sarah's voice remained steady as she called out enemy positions and coordinated her team's response. But it wasn't just her technical skills that impressed her instructors. Sarah had a natural ability to lead without commanding. During group exercises, other recruits began to look to her for guidance. She never demanded to be in charge, but her quiet confidence and clear thinking made her a natural focal point for team coordination. One evening, as the recruits cleaned their weapons after a long day at the firing range, Master Sergeant Thompson approached Sarah's bunk. "Martinez," he said, his voice carrying the authority that made even the toughest recruits snap to attention. "Walk with me." They stepped outside into the warm Georgia evening. Crickets chirped in the distance, and the smell of pine trees filled the air. For a moment, neither spoke as they walked along the path that circled the training facility. "You planning on making the Army a career, Martinez?" Thompson finally asked. Sarah had been thinking about this question for weeks. Her initial plan had been to serve her 4-year commitment and then use her benefits to attend college. But the more she learned about military life, the more she felt this was where she truly belonged. "I think so, Sergeant," she replied honestly. "I know I want to make a difference, and I feel like I can do that here." Thompson nodded. "You've got leadership written all over you, Martinez. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can spot natural leaders from day one. You don't just follow orders, you understand why orders exist. That's rare." He paused at a bench overlooking the training field where they had spent countless hours learning to work as a unit. "I'm going to recommend you for advanced leadership training after you graduate. It means more responsibility, harder work, and probably some people who won't like seeing a young woman in a leadership position." Sarah felt her heart race with excitement and nervous energy. This was an opportunity she had hoped for but hadn't dared to expect so early in her career. "I won't let you down, Sergeant." "I know you won't," Thompson replied. "But you need to understand something. The military is changing, slowly but surely. Women are taking on roles that were unthinkable when I started my career. You're going to be part of that change, whether you want to be or not. Some people will support you, others will test you, and a few will actively work against you. You ready for that kind of challenge?" Sarah thought about her grandfather's stories, about the courage it took to stand up for what was right even when it was difficult. She thought about the young women who might follow in her footsteps if she succeeded. "Yes, Sergeant, I'm ready." The final weeks of basic training passed quickly. Sarah continued to excel in every area, from physical fitness to tactical knowledge. She helped struggling teammates improve their performance and earned the respect of instructors who had decades of experience. During the graduation ceremony, as she stood at attention in her crisp uniform, Sarah felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. Master Sergeant Thompson called her aside after the ceremony. "Martinez, you're shipping out to Fort Leavenworth for the Officer Candidate School Prep course. It's a 16-week program that will test everything you think you know about leadership and military service. Less than 60% of candidates complete the program successfully." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Officer Candidate School was the pathway to becoming a commissioned officer, a goal that had seemed impossibly distant when she first enlisted. "What should I expect, Sergeant?" Thompson smiled, a rare expression of warmth crossing his usually stern face. "Expect to be challenged in ways you can't imagine. Expect to discover strengths you didn't know you had, and weaknesses you'll need to overcome. Most importantly, expect to emerge as a different person than you are today." He handed her a small book, worn from years of use. "This belonged to one of the finest officers I ever served under. Study it, learn from it, and remember that leadership isn't about commanding others, it's about serving them." That evening, as Sarah packed her belongings for the next phase of her journey, she opened the book Thompson had given her. It was filled with handwritten notes about leadership principles, tactical considerations, and philosophical thoughts about military service. On the first page, in faded ink, someone had written, "A true leader's strength is measured not by how many follow, but by how many they lift up along the way." As she read those words, Sarah made a promise to herself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever obstacles she would face because of her gender or her youth, she would remember that her goal wasn't just to succeed for herself. It was to open doors for others who would come after her. She would prove that leadership had nothing to do with size, gender, or background, and everything to do with character, competence, and courage. The bus that would take her to Fort Leavenworth arrived at dawn the next morning. As Sarah climbed aboard with her duffel bag and the worn leadership manual, she felt ready for whatever came next. She had no way of knowing that this journey would eventually lead to an encounter that would test everything she had learned about leadership, respect, and the true meaning of authority. But, for now, She was simply a determined young soldier ready to take the next step in a career that would surprise everyone, including herself. Officer Candidate School at Fort Leavenworth proved to be the most challenging experience of Sarah's young life. The 16-week program was designed to transform enlisted soldiers into commissioned officers, and every day brought new tests of leadership, judgment, and character. Sarah found herself in classes studying military history, international relations, ethics, and tactical planning alongside 39 other candidates from diverse backgrounds. The academic workload was intense. Days began at 500 hours with physical training, followed by 8 hours of classroom instruction, practical exercises, and individual study time that often extended past midnight. Sarah quickly learned that succeeding in OCS required more than just following orders. Candidates were expected to think critically, make complex decisions under pressure, and demonstrate the kind of moral courage that would be essential in leadership positions. Her first major challenge came during the 3rd week of the program. Candidates were divided into small teams and given a complex logistical problem to solve: how to evacuate a civilian population from a disaster zone with limited resources and multiple conflicting priorities. Each team had to present their solution to a panel of experienced officers who would evaluate their planning process, leadership dynamics, and final recommendations. Sarah found herself assigned to a team with 4 other candidates, including a former Marine sergeant named David Chun who had combat experience in Afghanistan, and Jennifer Walsh, a West Point graduate who had deferred her commission to complete a master's degree in international relations. The team dynamics were immediately challenging, as each member brought strong opinions and different approaches to problem solving. During their first planning session, tensions emerged quickly. David advocated for a military-focused solution that prioritized speed and efficiency over civilian comfort. Jennifer pushed for a more diplomatic approach that would involve extensive coordination with international aid organizations. The other 2 team members seemed content to follow whichever leader emerged dominant. Sarah listened carefully to all perspectives before speaking. When she finally contributed to the discussion, her approach was characteristically thoughtful. "What if we combine the best elements of both approaches?" she suggested. "David's timeline gives us the urgency we need, but Jennifer's coordination framework ensures we don't leave anyone behind. The real question is how we balance speed with thoroughness." Over the next several days, Sarah found herself naturally facilitating the team's discussions. She didn't try to dominate the conversation or impose her ideas, but she had a gift for asking the right questions and helping the team find common ground. When disagreements arose, she would redirect the discussion back to their shared objectives rather than getting caught up in personality conflicts. The breakthrough came when Sarah suggested they approach the problem from the perspective of the people they were trying to help. "If your family was in that disaster zone," she asked the team, "what would matter most to you? What would make you trust the people trying to evacuate you?" This shift in perspective changed everything. The team began designing their plan around the human elements of the crisis rather than just the logistical challenges. They developed protocols for keeping families together, ensuring medical needs were met, and maintaining communication between evacuees and their extended families. Their final presentation emphasized both efficiency and compassion, demonstrating how military precision could serve humanitarian goals. The panel of evaluating officers was impressed. Colonel Patricia Hayes, the senior evaluator, noted that Sarah's team had addressed complexities that other teams had overlooked. "Leadership isn't just about making decisions," Colonel Hayes observed during the feedback session. "It's about understanding the human impact of those decisions." This team demonstrated that understanding. After the exercise, David Chun approached Sarah privately. "I have to admit, I thought you were too soft for this program when we started," he said. "But you found a way to make everyone's ideas better, including mine. That's not something they teach you in combat." Word of Sarah's performance began to spread among the instructors. Captain Robert Torres, who taught the tactical planning course, began using Sarah's team exercises as examples for other candidates. Her ability to balance competing priorities and find creative solutions to complex problems was exactly the kind of thinking the Army needed from its future officers. But success at OCS brought its own challenges. Some candidates began to resent Sarah's growing reputation among the instructors. During a particularly difficult field exercise in the 8th week of the program, Sarah found herself facing subtle sabotage from a candidate named Michael Brennan, who had been struggling academically and seemed to blame others for his difficulties. The exercise involved a simulated peacekeeping mission where candidates had to establish security in a mock village while dealing with hostile civilians, limited resources, and conflicting intelligence reports. Sarah was assigned as the team leader for a 12-person unit that included Brennan. From the beginning of the exercise, Brennan questioned Sarah's decisions publicly, undermining her authority in front of other team members. When she assigned him to establish a checkpoint, he deliberately positioned it in a location that violated the tactical principles they had studied. When she tried to correct his mistake privately, he accused her of micromanaging. The situation came to a head when Sarah's team was tasked with responding to a simulated civilian emergency. Intelligence reports indicated that hostile forces were using the emergency as a trap, but civilian casualties were mounting. Sarah had to decide whether to commit her limited forces to a potentially dangerous rescue operation. After quickly analyzing the situation, Sarah made the difficult decision to proceed with the rescue while implementing additional security measures. She assigned Brennan to coordinate with local officials while she led the rescue team personally. It was a calculated risk that required precise timing and coordination. Brennan, however, failed to follow his assignment. Instead of coordinating with local officials as ordered, he abandoned his post to argue with the exercise controllers about the realism of the scenario. This breakdown in communication nearly caused the entire mission to fail. When the exercise concluded, the evaluating officers gathered all candidates for an after-action review. Captain Torres asked Brennan to explain his actions during the civilian emergency response. Brennan's answer was revealing. "I thought the whole scenario was unrealistic. In a real situation, I would have made different decisions than our team leader." Colonel Hayes, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. "Candidate Brennan, you're missing the fundamental point of this exercise. The scenario doesn't have to be realistic to your experience. Your job was to follow lawful orders and support your team leader's decisions. By abandoning your assigned position, you put the entire team at risk." She turned to address the entire group. Leadership is often about supporting decisions you might not personally agree with. Candidate Martinez made a difficult choice under pressure, adapted her plan when circumstances changed, and took personal responsibility for the outcome. Candidate Brennan chose to prioritize his personal opinions over team effectiveness. The incident became a turning point in the program. Other candidates began to see more clearly the difference between criticism and sabotage, between questioning orders appropriately and undermining authority. Sarah's response to Brennan's behavior, maintaining professionalism while documenting his failures, demonstrated the kind of emotional intelligence that would be essential in real leadership situations. During the final weeks of OCS, Sarah excelled in every area of evaluation. Her tactical knowledge was solid, her physical fitness scores were consistently high, and her leadership evaluations were exceptional. More importantly, other candidates had begun to seek her advice and guidance, recognizing her as a natural leader regardless of her rank or position in the formal hierarchy. The graduation ceremony took place on a crisp autumn morning at Fort Leavenworth. Sarah stood with 26 other successful candidates as they prepared to receive their commissions as second lieutenants in the United States Army. Of the 40 candidates who had started the program, 14 had been eliminated or dropped out along the way. Colonel Hayes delivered the commissioning address, speaking about the responsibilities and challenges that awaited the new officers. "You are now leaders in the world's most professional military force," she said. "That privilege comes with obligations that will test your character, your judgment, and your commitment to serving others." When Sarah's name was called, she stepped forward to receive her commission certificate and gold bars that would replace her enlisted rank insignia. As Colonel Hayes pinned the lieutenant's bars on her uniform, she spoke quietly so only Sarah could hear. "I've been watching you throughout this program, Martinez. You have the potential to go far in this army, but remember that potential means nothing without continued effort and growth." After the ceremony, Sarah's family had driven from Texas to attend her graduation. Her grandfather, now in his 80s but still sharp, examined her new rank insignia with obvious pride. "You know," he said, When I was your age, women couldn't even serve in combat roles. Times change, but the honor of wearing that uniform doesn't. You've earned your place here. Sarah's first assignment was to Fort Carson, Colorado, where she would serve as a platoon leader in the 4th Infantry Division. The position would give her responsibility for 32 soldiers and provide valuable experience in unit leadership. As she prepared for this next phase of her career, Sarah reflected on how much she had changed since her early days in basic training. The shy young woman from Texas had become a confident officer, but more importantly, she had developed a leadership philosophy based on service, competence, and respect for others. She understood that her success would be measured not by her personal achievements, but by how well she developed and supported the soldiers under her command. Fort Carson proved to be an ideal environment for a new lieutenant to learn and grow. The base was home to multiple combat brigades with extensive training facilities and a culture that emphasized professional development. Sarah's company commander, Captain James Rodriguez, was a seasoned officer who believed in giving his lieutenants significant responsibility while providing the guidance they needed to succeed. Sarah's platoon consisted of soldiers from diverse backgrounds and experience levels. Some were fresh recruits barely out of basic training, while others were experienced sergeants who had served multiple deployments overseas. Managing this mix of personalities and skill levels required all the leadership techniques Sarah had learned at OCS and more. Her platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, was a 12-year veteran who had served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Santos was initially skeptical of her new platoon leader, having worked with several fresh lieutenants who thought their college degrees and officer training made them experts in military operations. The relationship between Sarah and Santos began cautiously but developed into one of mutual respect and effective partnership. Sarah recognized that Santos had combat experience and practical knowledge that she lacked, while Santos appreciated that Sarah listened to advice and made decisions based on what was best for the soldiers rather than what would advance her own career. Their first major test came during a month-long training exercise at the National Training Center in California. The exercise simulated combat operations in a desert environment against an opposing force of experienced soldiers playing the role of enemy combatants. It was designed to test every aspect of unit operations under realistic conditions. Sarah's platoon was assigned to conduct reconnaissance patrols in support of a larger battalion operation. The mission required careful planning, precise execution, and the ability to adapt quickly when circumstances changed. For many of the younger soldiers in the platoon, it was their first experience with extended field operations. During the second week of the exercise, Sarah's platoon was tasked with establishing an observation post on high ground overlooking a key transportation route. Intelligence reports suggested enemy forces were using the route to move supplies at night, and Sarah's mission was to confirm this activity and report enemy movements to higher headquarters. The observation post required her platoon to remain hidden for 3 days while maintaining constant surveillance of the target area. It was physically demanding work that tested both technical skills and mental discipline. Soldiers had to work in shifts, managing their equipment, communications, and basic needs while remaining alert for enemy activity. On the second night, one of Sarah's newest soldiers, Private Thompson, made a critical error that could have compromised the entire mission. While adjusting his night vision equipment, he accidentally activated a visible light that could have revealed their position to enemy observers. Staff Sergeant Santos immediately corrected the mistake, but the incident highlighted the challenges of working with inexperienced personnel. Sarah's response to the incident demonstrated her growing maturity as a leader. Instead of punishing Thompson publicly, she used the mistake as a teaching opportunity for the entire platoon. During a brief break in operations, she gathered her soldiers and reviewed proper procedures for night operations, emphasizing the importance of attention to detail without singling out any individual. Later, she spoke with Thompson privately to ensure he understood the potential consequences of his mistake and to reinforce the correct procedures. Her approach balanced accountability with mentorship, helping Thompson learn from his error without destroying his confidence. The exercise concluded successfully, with Sarah's platoon earning recognition for their effective reconnaissance operations. More importantly, The experience had bonded the unit and established Sarah's credibility as a leader who could be trusted in challenging situations. As she prepared for her next assignment, Sarah reflected on the lessons she had learned during her first year as an officer. Leadership, she realized, was not about commanding others, but about serving them. It required technical competence, emotional intelligence, and the moral courage to make difficult decisions. Most importantly, it demanded a commitment to developing others and placing their welfare above personal ambition. These lessons would serve her well as she continued to advance through the ranks, but she had no way of knowing that they would eventually be tested in a way she never could have imagined. 3 years into her military career, Sarah Martinez had established herself as one of the most promising young officers in her brigade. Her performance reviews consistently rated her in the top 5% of her peer group, and she had earned the respect of both superiors and subordinates through her dedication, competence, and genuine concern for her soldiers' welfare. Her promotion to first lieutenant came ahead of schedule, along with assignment to the prestigious Ranger School preparation course. Ranger School was one of the Army's most challenging leadership programs, with a failure rate approaching 60%. The course was physically brutal, mentally exhausting, and designed to test leaders under conditions of extreme stress and sleep deprivation. Sarah had been preparing for Ranger School for months, focusing intensively on physical conditioning and studying the tactical knowledge she would need to succeed. The program's reputation was intimidating even for experienced officers, and she knew that as one of the few women attempting the course, she would face additional scrutiny and skepticism. The pre-Ranger course at Fort Benning was designed to prepare candidates for the challenges ahead. Sarah found herself among 45 other officers and senior non-commissioned officers who had been selected based on their leadership potential and physical fitness. The group included combat veterans, experienced instructors, and rising stars from various units across the Army. From the first day of training, the instructors made it clear that they expected excellence from every candidate. Master Sergeant First Class William Hayes, the senior instructor, was a legend in the Ranger community with over 20 years of special operations experience. His opening remarks set the tone for everything that followed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hayes announced to the assembled candidates, "you are here because someone in your chain of command believes you have the potential to earn the Ranger tab. I'm here to determine whether that faith is justified. Over the next 3 weeks, you will be tested in ways that will reveal your true character. Some of you will rise to the challenge. Others will discover that they are not ready for this level of responsibility." The first phase of training focused on individual skills and physical conditioning. Candidates were required to complete advanced first aid certification, demonstrate proficiency with various weapon systems, and pass increasingly difficult physical fitness tests. Sarah's years of consistent training served her well during this phase, as she consistently scored in the top 10% of all candidates. But the real challenges began during the second phase, which emphasized leadership under stress. Candidates were placed in rotating leadership positions for complex tactical problems that had to be solved with limited information and resources. Each exercise was designed to test different aspects of leadership, from planning and decision-making to communication and team coordination. Sarah's first leadership evaluation came during a night infiltration exercise. She was tasked with leading a 12-person team through hostile territory to establish an observation post near an enemy compound. The mission required careful route planning, noise discipline, and precise timing to avoid detection by opposing forces played by Ranger School instructors. During the mission planning phase, Sarah spent considerable time studying maps, analyzing intelligence reports, and consulting with her team members about potential challenges. She identified 3 possible routes to the objective, evaluated the advantages and disadvantages of each option, and developed contingency plans for various scenarios. Her approach impressed the evaluating instructors not because it was particularly innovative, but because it was thorough and methodical. Sarah asked the right questions, considered multiple factors in her decision-making process, and communicated her plans clearly to team members. Most importantly, she demonstrated confidence in her decisions while remaining open to input from experienced team members. The mission itself went smoothly until the team was approximately halfway to their objective. An unexpected patrol forced Sarah to make a rapid decision about whether to abort the mission, take cover, and wait for the patrol to pass, or alter their route to avoid detection. Each option carried significant risks and potential consequences. After quickly analyzing the situation, Sarah decided to alter their route using terrain features that would provide concealment while allowing the team to maintain their timeline. It was a calculated risk that required the team to move through more difficult terrain, but it avoided the delays that would have resulted from other options. The decision proved successful. Sarah's team reached their objective on schedule without being detected, established their observation post effectively, and completed their surveillance mission according to their orders. During the after-action review, the evaluating instructors noted that Sarah had demonstrated sound tactical judgment and effective crisis management. Master Sergeant Hayes pulled Sarah aside after the exercise. "Martinez, that was solid work tonight. You made a good decision under pressure and adapted your plan without losing sight of your mission objectives. That kind of thinking is exactly what we're looking for in Ranger candidates." Word of Sarah's performance began to spread among the other candidates. Several of them approached her for advice about mission planning and leadership techniques. She found herself in the unusual position of being a mentor figure despite being one of the younger officers in the program. The third phase of training introduced even greater challenges through extended field exercises that combined multiple leadership scenarios. Candidates were required to function effectively despite sleep deprivation, limited food, and constant pressure from instructors who were evaluating their every decision. During one particularly demanding exercise, Sarah was assigned to lead a combat patrol that had to respond to multiple simultaneous threats while coordinating with supporting units. The scenario was designed to test her ability to prioritize tasks, delegate authority, and maintain unit effectiveness under extreme stress. The exercise began at 0300 hours with intelligence reports indicating enemy activity in multiple locations within Sarah's patrol sector. She had to decide whether to split her forces to address multiple threats simultaneously or concentrate her unit to deal with threats sequentially. Both approaches had significant advantages and potential drawbacks. Sarah's decision was characteristically thoughtful. She analyzed the intelligence reports carefully, evaluated her unit's capabilities and limitations, and considered the likely consequences of each course of action. After consulting with her team leaders, she decided to address the most significant threat first while establishing observation posts to monitor other areas of concern. The decision required her to move quickly and communicate effectively with both her subordinate team leaders and higher headquarters. As the exercise progressed, new information changed the tactical situation several times, forcing Sarah to adapt her plans while maintaining focus on her primary objectives. Her performance during this exercise was exceptional. Sarah demonstrated the ability to think clearly under pressure, make rapid decisions with limited information, and maintain control of her unit despite changing circumstances. More importantly, she showed the kind of moral courage that Ranger School was designed to develop and test. The exercise concluded with Sarah's patrol successfully completing all assigned missions while minimizing casualties and maintaining unit integrity. During the detailed after-action review that followed, instructors noted that Sarah had demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership effectiveness that the Ranger program was designed to produce. Master Sergeant Hayes addressed Sarah and the other successful candidates during their graduation ceremony. "You have proven that you possess the technical skills, physical toughness, and mental discipline necessary to lead in the most challenging circumstances," he said. "But remember that earning the Ranger tab is not the end of your development as leaders. It is simply proof that you are ready for greater responsibilities and more significant challenges." Sarah's successful completion of Ranger School marked a major milestone in her career. The distinctive Ranger tab on her uniform indicated to everyone who saw it that she had completed one of the Army's most demanding leadership programs. More importantly, the experience had increased her confidence and refined her leadership abilities in ways that would serve her throughout her military career. Her next assignment took her to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where she joined the 82nd Airborne Division as a company executive officer. The position was a significant step up in responsibility, requiring her to assist in managing a company of approximately 120 soldiers while handling administrative, logistical, and training responsibilities. Captain Lisa Chun, the company commander, was a 15-year veteran who had served multiple combat deployments and was known for developing junior officers effectively. During Sarah's initial meeting with Captain Chun, she received guidance that would prove invaluable throughout her career. Martinez, Captain Chun said, "You've got an impressive record and strong potential, but now you're going to face a different kind of challenge. As an executive officer, you're not just responsible for leading a small team anymore. You're helping me manage an entire company, which means you need to understand how individual decisions affect larger organizational goals." The 82nd Airborne Division maintained an intensive training schedule designed to keep units ready for rapid deployment anywhere in the world. Sarah found herself coordinating complex training exercises that involved multiple companies, managing relationships with external organizations, and handling administrative challenges that required attention to detail and careful planning. One of her first major responsibilities involved planning and executing a month-long training exercise that would test the company's readiness for airborne operations. The exercise required coordination with Air Force transport units, careful management of equipment and personnel, and detailed planning for every phase of operations from initial briefings through final equipment recovery. Sarah approached the planning process with characteristic thoroughness. She consulted with experienced non-commissioned officers who had participated in similar exercises, studied previous training reports to identify common problems and best practices, and developed detailed timelines and contingency plans for various scenarios. The exercise began with a series of classroom training sessions designed to refresh soldiers' knowledge of airborne operations procedures. Sarah coordinated with subject matter experts to ensure that training was both comprehensive and engaging, recognizing that bored soldiers were less likely to retain critical safety information. The first airborne operation took place on a clear morning at Pope Army Airfield. Sarah was responsible for coordinating ground operations, while Captain Chun managed overall exercise control. As soldiers boarded the aircraft that would take them to their drop zone, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervous responsibility. Everything went smoothly during the aircraft loading and flight phases, but complications arose during the actual parachute operations. High winds at the drop zone caused several soldiers to land outside the designated area, requiring immediate search and recovery operations. One soldier suffered a minor injury during landing, necessitating medical evacuation and incident reporting. Sarah's response to these complications demonstrated her growing maturity as a military leader. She coordinated search teams efficiently, ensured proper medical care for the injured soldier, and maintained communication with all relevant headquarters while continuing to execute the training mission. Her calm professionalism under pressure impressed both Captain Chun and the senior non-commissioned officers who were evaluating her performance. After the exercise concluded, Captain Chun conducted a detailed review of Sarah's performance. "You handled those complications exactly right, Martinez," she said. "You didn't panic when things went wrong, you prioritized properly, and you kept everyone informed. That's the kind of thinking that separates good officers from great ones." The successful completion of the airborne training exercise marked another important step in Sarah's professional development. She had demonstrated the ability to manage complex operations involving multiple organizations and changing circumstances. More importantly, she had earned the respect of experienced leaders who would serve as mentors and advocates throughout her career. As her time in the 82nd Airborne Division continued, Sarah took on increasingly challenging responsibilities. She managed logistics for deployment exercises, coordinated training with international partner forces, and served as the company's representative in high-level planning meetings. Each new responsibility added to her knowledge and experience while building the foundation for future leadership positions. During her second year at Fort Bragg, Sarah was selected for promotion to captain and assigned to attend the Combined Armed Services Staff School at Fort Leavenworth. The 10-month program was designed to prepare mid-level officers for staff positions and provide advanced education in military operations, logistics, and strategic planning. The staff school represented a natural progression in Sarah's career, but it also marked a transition from primarily tactical responsibilities to strategic thinking and planning. She would be required to understand how military operations fit into broader political and economic contexts, and how individual unit actions contributed to larger organizational objectives. As Sarah prepared for this next phase of her education and career, she reflected on how much she had grown since her early days as a second lieutenant. She had successfully commanded soldiers in challenging training environments, managed complex operations under pressure, and earned the respect of peers and superiors through consistent performance and professional development. The lessons she had learned about leadership, responsibility, and service had become integral parts of her character. She understood that effective leadership required more than technical knowledge or physical courage. It demanded emotional intelligence, moral courage, and a genuine commitment to developing others. These principles would guide her through the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead, including an unexpected encounter that would test everything she had learned about respect, authority, and the true meaning of military service. 8 years after first enlisting, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah